Hi, my name is Jane. I'm here to go over muscle anatomy for elbow flexion and elbow extension. I'll give you a couple tips so you don't drive yourself crazy trying to remember all the origins and insertions, functions, innervations, and arteries. Alright, so first we are going to go over the four muscles on the anterior aspect of your arm that will be facilitating the motion of elbow flexion. The first tool you can use is the phrase, "Bis for the babes and tris for the guys." It'll help you remember which muscles are involved with the two functions. The first half of the statement, bis for the babes, 4 B's, indicates 4 B muscles are involved with elbow flexion. Biceps brachii, long head, biceps brachii, short head, brachialis, and brachioradialis. We'll get into that later. And then for extension, we have and tris for the guys. And a tris 3 T's. So A, T, T, T. There's 3 heads of the triceps brachii and the anconeus. 4 muscles for elbow flexion, 4 muscles for elbow extension, not flexion, extension. Nix that. The biceps brachii looks like one muscle, but it has one long head and one short head from where it originates from 2 different spots of the scapula. Surprisingly, it does not attach to the humerus. The bicep actually starts from your scapula and then ends up on your radius. Where it starts, the long head, let me show you on the scapula that I made that just broke about 2 seconds ago. Alright, so if this is the spine, this is the acromion process, this is the coracoid process, glenoid fossa. You guys basically know the layout of the scapula. And so the long head attaches to the supraglenoid tubercle of the scapula, and the short head attaches to the coracoid process of the scapula. I have a little trick to remember that, a lot easier than this little doohickey. But we'll go over that in a second. They both coalesce and attach into the radial tuberosity. How I remember that it's the radius and not the ulna is that when you show someone your guns, right? You flex your arm and you can palpate your bicep. You can also see it. Mine, not so much, but yeah, you can see that there's a bicep right here. But as you pronate, did you notice that suddenly it dipped? It changes which muscle shows. The reason why is because the ulna, I should show you like this. Alright, so medially, the ulna is fixated. Laterally, the radius, as you pronate your hand, it rotates over and crosses over and makes an X with the ulna. So the radial tuberosity, when it's supinated, will be here, but as you pronate, it will change orientation so that you cannot flex the biceps brachii anymore. So when you flex and supinate the arm, the biceps brachii, since it's attached to the radial tuberosity, it can flex like that, and then as soon as you pronate, you lose that ability. With the brachialis, however, it inserts into the ulnar tuberosity. When you pronate, the brachialis is still activated in full force. For me, it's a little bit of a pudge, but it'll do. That's why when you do a chin-up, it's so much easier than if you were to do a pull-up, because as you do a chin-up, you're relying on a lot of other muscles besides the biceps. So the next time someone asks you where the gun show is, don't point them that way, this way. And the fourth muscle, brachioradialis. It originates from just above the lateral epicondyle, as well as the intermuscular septum. If you were to bisect my arm right now, right at the humerus, and look at the muscles of the arm, you would see the brachialis, and then you would see the triceps, and in between the two muscles is an intermuscular septum. So it originates from 2 points. It's the superior aspect on the humerus to the lateral epicondyle, as well as the intermuscular septum. And then it runs down superficially on the arm and inserts into the styloid process of the radius. Brachioradialis. Brachioradialis. Makes sense, right? Functionally, you can think of, who's heard of PBRs? Pabst Blue Ribbon. You can think of it as Pabst Brachioradialis because the function of it, although it flexes the elbow, it's optimal when the thumb side is up in a scaption position. So reviewing the functions of the 4 muscles we went over: brachioradialis, flexion, optimally in scaption position. And then we have the biceps brachii, which likes to be supinated, bicep curls. And then the brachialis, doesn't matter. Either way, doesn't matter how you orient the arm, it will still flex and activate. That's why it's the best muscle. You can do Egyptian moves, you can do bicep curls, you can, I don't know, I guess those are the only 2 things you can do. It's my best friend. Yeah. Alright, so for innervation, all you have to remember is everything that is in the anterior portion of the humerus, all the muscles that are in the front, are going to be innervated by the musculocutaneous nerve. The only exception is the brachioradialis. The brachioradialis gets grouped with the triceps. So musculocutaneous, extensors plus the brachioradialis will be the radial nerve. Musculocutaneous, radial. Musculocutaneous, radial. Keep doing that, and then maybe 100 times and you'll get it. And as for artery supply, both the long head and the short head of the biceps brachii will be supplied by the brachial. And then these 2 muscles, the brachialis and the brachioradialis, will be radial recurrent artery. Brachial artery, radial recurrent artery. For me, it helps to actually look at my own arm and pinpoint which muscles are affected by which arteries, because in the future, if I need to remember, hey, what muscles are fed by the radial recurrent artery, then I remember sticking 2 fingers out like this, and I'm like, yeah, the brachialis and the brachioradialis was. For some people, drawing it out works better. I like being hands-on. Moving on to the elbow extensors, we have the ATTT muscles, the anconeus, the triceps brachii medial head, triceps brachii lateral head, triceps brachii long head. Now here's where a trick I just taught myself might work for you. Alright, so your left fist will represent the scapulus. Or, did I say scapulus? Sorry. The scapula. Then the right hand will represent the bis and tris. It's a game of rock, paper, scissors. We're going to play rock, scissor, bisect. Now, I told you this was the scapulus. Right? Oh my god, I keep saying scapulus. Scapula, right? The circle represents the glenoid fossa. The little thumb sticking out right here, it represents the coracoid process. As you might see, if you were to actually look at a scapula laterally, it might look a little bit like my hand. And so you're going to open up your right hand. The top side is the anterior side. The bottom side is the posterior side. So 2 heads of biceps, 3 heads of triceps. with the two heads, the long head touches right above the glenoid fossa. Hey, what do you know? We just went over this. It's the supraglenoid tubercle of the scapula where it originates. The short head, where does it originate? The coracoid process. It barely touches my thumb. It barely touches my knuckle. I think if you have shorter fingers than me, it might not work. So it sucks for you. No, I don't know. But you can look at my hand and kind of see where I'm going with this. And then the three heads of the triceps, the long head touches right underneath our metaphorical glenoid fossa. So this is the infraglenoid tuberosity. Tubercle up top, tuberosity down here. Tubercle up top, tuberosity down here. The long head is into the scapula, and then the two heads, the one that's closest, that's medial to my body, the pinky, is the medial head, and the one that's lateral to it is the lateral head of the tricep. So these two, they don't actually attach to the scapula, it goes on the humerus. Maybe my wrist will represent the humerus. It attaches to the posterior aspect of the humerus. If you look at the muscle on a diagram, you'll see that the medial head and the lateral head are like this. The lateral head is actually a little bit on top of it, and it's also higher up because it's longer. The shortest, deepest muscle is the medial head. And then the long head wraps on all the way over into where the scapula goes. I don't know if my hand diagrams were as good as a regular diagram, but I'm just trying to explain the tool right now. I hope this is going through to you guys. It is about 100 degrees in this room and I'm sweating. And the easiest part to remember is that all heads of the triceps will come together and insert into the olecranon. What else inserts into the olecranon is the anconeus, our last elbow extensor. It originates from the posterior aspect of the lateral epicondyle, and it triangles out, attaching to the olecranon and the proximal posterior ulna. So it goes from here to here. Notice it goes from humerus to the ulna. The medial head and the lateral head as well goes from humerus to ulna. So the 2 points of contact will give them one function, extension of the elbow. However, with the long head, remember it's attached to the scapula. It starts from the scapula, then goes to the ulna, and therefore it can do an extension and adduction of the arm. It can bring the arm closer in as it contracts in towards the scapular side. As for the nerves and arteries, it's all grouped together. So all the elbow extensors will have the radial nerve as its innervating nerve. Radial nerve. Remember we went over this earlier, that the BR, the brachioradialis, and the extensors, all radial. And then we have the artery, which is the deep brachial. So remember that the brachial artery supplied our biceps brachii. The deep brachial artery supplies the blood to all of our elbow extensors. And then remember radial recurrent artery for brachialis and brachioradialis. Alright? And then before I let you go, we're going to run through it real quick one more time. Try to follow along with me. Fill in the blanks. Interrupt me. Say it out loud. Either way, just let's run through it together. Alright, biceps brachii, long head, starts from the supraglenoid tubercle. Remember this? And then it inserts into the radial tuberosity, supination. It also inserts into the bicipital aponeurosis. And then we have the short head. It goes from the coracoid process of the scapula and inserts into the radial tuberosity once again, supination, bicep curls. Alright, next. They are both innervated by the musculocutaneous nerve and supplied by the same arterial line. The artery is the brachial artery. Next, we have the brachialis. The brachialis starts from the anterior humerus and it goes into the ulna. Because it's our favorite muscle, it can do whatever it wants. The ulnar tuberosity is where it inserts. It causes elbow flexion. It's innervated by the musculocutaneous nerve because it's in the anterior humerus section. And then, but remember, these two are supplied by the radial recurrent artery. Moving on to the brachioradialis. Brachioradialis starts from just above the lateral epicondyle, also the intermuscular septum, and then it runs down and inserts into the styloid process of the radius. Function is to flex the arm, but thumb side up would be more optimal. And then it also is innervated by the radial nerve. The reason why I didn't say it was musculocutaneous because it's an exception. It gets grouped with the triceps. It's fed blood by the radial recurrent artery. Boom. Last, biceps brachii and the anconeus. We have three heads. The long head starts from the infraglenoid. The infraglenoid tuberosity, right? And then the medial head, lateral head, both start from the posterior aspect of your humerus. They all come down and insert into the olecranon. Its function is to extend the elbow, except the long head will adduct as well. They all are supplied by the deep brachial artery and the radial nerve. I'm sorry, I'm having a little brain fart because I'm going a little faster than I'm used to. And lastly, the extensor is the anconeus. The anconeus goes from the posterior aspect of the lateral epicondyle and it triangles out to the olecranon and the proximal ulna posteriorly. That, I should have done this all together. I apologize. So all the extensors, all three heads of the triceps, as well as the anconeus, the deep brachial artery, and innervation will be radial nerve along with the brachioradialis. Alright, that about wraps it up. Next time we'll go over the wrist flexors and the wrist extensors. Yeah! See you later!